Hello everybody, welcome back to another video, and in today's video we are going to be doing another unboxing. Now before I start, I do want to apologize for my voice. I don't know if you can hear it, but I am a little bit groggy. I've been fairly ill over the past few days. I'm recording this one day before this video is due to go out, and I think I can just about get away with recording a video, but you can probably sense some grogginess in my voice. It wasn't the coronavirus, so at least there's that, but over the past few days I've just felt a little bit under the weather. But apart from that, we have some models to unbox today. Some models that I'm pretty excited about. I turned 20 a few days ago as well, so these are on behalf of my 20th birthday. I have 3 models today. As I said, I'm very excited about all 3 of them, but one in particular I'm extremely excited about. But starting off today, we have a Gemini Jets, but a very old Gemini Jets model. We have a Gemini Jets Japan Government 747-400s. Now these were retired in 2018, I believe. These were replaced with the Boeing 777-300s, but I just really wanted to get the 747 because, as you know, I love the 747, and I do want to get to a point where I can do a G7 airport update. For those of you who don't know what G7 is, it's essentially this meeting that happens every year between 7 of the largest, well, I say this in quotation marks, the largest or most important economies of the world. Basically 7 of the largest Western countries, because Russia and China aren't involved or anything, but it involves the US, the UK, France, Italy, Germany, Canada, and Japan, and every year it takes place in one of those countries, and basically all of the aircraft from all of those countries fly into that one place. And so one day a year you have this incredible meetup of all these presidential aircraft. In 2021 it was in Newquay in England, and at Newquay Airport you had, of course, Air Force One come in, you had the Royal Air Force A321neo, and a bunch of other aircraft as well from, of course, all the other countries like Italy, Canada, and Japan. And so at the moment, of course, I have Air Force One from the US, I have a presidential aircraft from also France, the UK, and Germany, and now, of course, joining we have Japan as well. So I just need Italy and Canada, and then we can do a G7 airport update. But yeah, we're going to be opening this model in just a second, but first I'm going to introduce the next 2, and these are both Aeroclassics models. Now, I typically don't go for the really classic aircraft, and by really classic aircraft, what I mean by that is the 50s, 60s, and 70s aircraft. I do kind of venture into the 90s and maybe sometimes the 80s with, for example, my Utopia aircraft that were around in the 1990s and some of my 747 SPs, but I never really venture any far further back than that. Until today though. Now my justification for this is one of these aircraft in particular is a very famous aircraft, and I've wanted one of these in my collection for a very long time. As well as that, these are both Royal Air Force aircraft, so I can kind of count these towards my military collection rather than my kind of retro and classic collection. But here we have 2 models. We have a dual box here. We have 2 Aeroclassics models. We have the Royal Air Force Bristol Britannia 175 on the left there. Not as fussed about that, but the one on the right here is the main reason why I bought this kind of selection box here. We have the Royal Air Force de Havilland Comet 4. For those of you who don't know what the Comet is, I don't think you should really be into aviation if you don't know what the Comet is. It's the first purpose-built jet-powered airliner. It's probably the aircraft that paved the way for modern civil aviation, so it's an aircraft that I've wanted in my collection for a very long time. But as I say, I will get to that one last, so we're going to start off now with the Japanese Government 747-400s. As I said, these are now retired. These retired in 2018. Japan operated 2 of these, and now they have been replaced with 2 newer Boeing 777-300ERs. Although these were retired in 2018, these were brought into the Japanese Air Self-Defense Force fleet in 1987. So yeah, this aircraft has had almost 40 years of operational service. It's sad that it's now retired, but it is still a 747, and I still want this in my collection. As you can see, this is a very old model. The box isn't exactly in the best of shapes. This came out in 1999, so this model is in fact older than me. And so yeah, with that being said, I think we're just going to go ahead and open it now. As you can see, just like the modern Gemini Jets boxes, we have this flap here with all the information on the inside there. Very messy. You can see how Gemini Jets have improved. They've kind of ironed this all out and everything, and it looks a lot neater on the newer boxes. Then inside here, now I did get this from the Bedfordshire diecast store, and they have this really weird obsession with putting toilet roll over the models. I don't know what that's about, but there we go. And then we have this card here because this is, of course, a limited edition model. Only 2,000 were made, and as you can see, this is the 1,833rd model to be made. So that's pretty cool, and yeah, with that, we're just going to go ahead now and open the box. Now, this has been taped shut from one side, so I'm going to open this from this side here, and we're going to take out the cradle, and here we go. We have the model inside here. Now, despite being over 20 years old, this model looks really, really good. No sign of any fades or anything. I'm just noting off the front there. This aircraft is mainly white, and white can fade over time to this kind of creamish color, but it looks very pure white, so that looks really good. We have that card inside there, just another card, nothing really special about it. It's got a picture of the real aircraft on the back there, and yeah, then we have the toilet paper on the top there, along with the original packaging, like this polystyrene piece that Gemini Jets used to put over their models, and we have the classic nose piece as well. A lot of the old Gemini Jets models came with this nose plastic piece that comes off there. It's pretty cool, and yeah, here we have the model in an amazing condition. I do have to say, the colors look amazing, no sign of any fades or anything. This looks to be in absolutely perfect condition. And so starting off at the front of the aircraft here, as you can see, we have the absolutely classic 747 nose here. Now, despite being a 747-400, you can see that there are no windows at the upper portion of the upper deck here, which is a pretty unique feature. Of course, that's because this is technically a military version of the 747-400. Underneath the cockpit there, you can see we've got, of course, Japan in English, and then I presume Japan in Japanese there, with the Japanese flag above the L1 door there. Then we have the red and gold stripe over the lower deck of the windows, moving back to the L2 door there. Then moving to the middle of the aircraft now, it is a pretty white aircraft, so there's not really a ton to note. We have the continuation of that red stripe continuing down the middle of the aircraft there, with a few emergency exits and everything. The rest of the aircraft is just white, along with the engines there, and of course the 747-400 winglets. On the wing of the aircraft though, we have that Japanese dot. That's the Japanese Air Self-Defense Force dot. You can tell by the white kind of outline around the red dot there. Just the Japanese dot that you see on civilian aircraft, that's just the plain red dot, but the Air Force logo is the one with the white rim around the dot there, and then as you can see, it says Japan on the wing there as well. Then concluding the aircraft at the back here, as you can see, we have the rear door. Now we have something that looks like the registration, but it's not. That says something in Japanese. Now, surprise, surprise, I do not speak Japanese, so I don't know what that says. Pretty obvious to know that, of course, registrations are always in the English kind of alphabet, so of course up here we have the registration of the aircraft. I don't know what this says. If any of you do speak Japanese or know how to read it or anything, or just know what that says, please let me know, because I don't know what that says. And then back here on the tail, as you can see, we have the Japanese dot of the Japanese flag there. And yeah, overall this just looks like a really cool, a really clean aircraft to have in my collection. A few months ago, we didn't have many Japanese aircraft in my collection. I think we had the ANA 777-200, the 777-300, which I only got, I think, 2 years ago now, which is crazy to think about. And then as well, the R2D2 787-9. But then over the past few months, we've had a very big increase in Japanese aircraft. Of course, I got the JAL 787-9. I got the 3 ANA A380s. I got the Japanese Air Self-Defense Force F-15 Eagle in my fighter jet unboxing. And as well, we also have the Japanese Air Self-Defense Force C-130 now, which is an absolutely beautiful aircraft in that blue color. So yeah, this is another Japanese aircraft into my collection. It's amazing how much my Japanese collection has grown, but yeah, a beautiful aircraft. I love the 747 as it is, and honestly, although this livery, it's not the most exciting, I think that this livery, it's simple, but it's nice and it's effective, and it just really reflects Japan. But apart from that, we're going to move this aircraft off to the side now, and we're going to move on to my 2 Royal Air Force aircraft. And here we go. We have my 2 Royal Air Force aircraft. We have on the left there the Bristol Britannia 175, and on the right the de Havilland Comet 4. Now, before I go into depth on the information about these aircraft, I think I'm just going to go ahead and get these out. So as you can see, the box is actually really cool. I love the old white color schemes that the Royal Air Force had. I know they weren't the same, but how the V-bombers were all in white, I know that was a different reason as to why these aircraft are in white. But I do love how a lot of the Royal Air Force aircraft used to be in these white color schemes. I think it just looks really clean and really sleek. Now, of course, 99% of all the Royal Air Force aircraft are just in that boring grey, and it gets boring after a while, so it's nice to see these white aircraft. So yeah, I'm just going to go ahead and open the box here. Now we have two separate cradles. This isn't like the Gemini Jets 737-200s that we unboxed in a similar fashion where they came out in one giant cradle. We have a separate cradle for the Comet there, and then inside here, if I kind of roll that out of the side there, we have the Bristol Britannia in a separate box, or cradle I should say. Now, as I said, I mainly got this for the Comet, I'm not going to lie, so we're going to open the Bristol Britannia first. Now, one thing I do love about this kind of box set is it shows the kind of transformation from prop aircraft to jet aircraft. Now, of course, the Royal Air Force still use prop aircraft. Prop aircraft are still heavily used around the world, like the A400M, the C-130s. So prop aircraft will never completely go away, but as you can see in here, we have this beautiful Bristol Britannia 175. So the Bristol Britannia 175 was first flown in 1952 and then was introduced with BOAC in 1957. Not many of these were built. I believe it's somewhere around the 50 or 60 mark, so not that many, and a few went into service with, of course, the Royal Air Force that you can see here. These, of course, acted as transport aircraft, just like the Comet that we're going to see in a moment. And yeah, the job of these aircraft was to just transport kind of VIPs and maybe troops at some points as well. But yeah, as I say, this model is pretty rare for me. I don't really like to go back to the 50s and 60s models. The reason why I don't like to is just because I feel like if I start collecting aircraft like this, then I'm not going to stop, and it's just going to be another giant money pit and another kind of avenue of my collection. I'm letting myself buy this one, however, because this one can just join my military collection, and I don't feel like I have to find a new spot for it in my kind of categorized cabinet system that I have. So this can just join my other Royal Air Force aircraft like it's no big deal. As you can see at the front of the aircraft, we have this blue zigzag stripe that goes through the middle of the windows there. Then we have the L1 door here that can be converted into a cargo door that you can see. You can see the outline of the passenger door and then the cargo door on the outside there. And then as you can see over the top of the windows there, we have the titles of the aircraft, which says Royal Air Force Transport Command. So of course, that's this aircraft's role, is transporting important people. And then as well, as you can see, we have those props there and the Royal Air Force insignias on each side of the wings there. And then here at the rear of the aircraft, as you can see, we have the continuation of that blue stripe through the windows. We have the Royal Air Force insignia and the registration there. And then I actually had a friend say to me a while back, when looking at a picture of a Spitfire, why does the Spitfire have the French flag on the tail? Yes, they really said that. The French flag anyway is blue, white and red, not red, white and blue. And of course, this is the other insignia that they use on the tails of Royal Air Force aircraft. Now usually I think they use just the red and the blue. They don't have that white stripe in the middle. And then of course we have the number up here. I don't think this is the registration, so I don't know what this number entails. We have a number on the tail there as well, and then of course we have that giant rudder taking up about half of the tail piece there. And despite not getting this dual box selection for this aircraft, I do still think this is a really nice looking aircraft, and I do think that this is going to look really good alongside some of my other Royal Air Force aircraft. And finally here, moving on to the de Havilland Comet. Now of course you guys will probably know de Havilland. They still manufacture some aircraft around today, like for example the Twin Otter, and also variants of the Q400 as well. But inside here, as you can see, we have a very old de Havilland aircraft that I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with. We have the de Havilland Comet. Look at that. And so here we go. We have the de Havilland Comet 4. Now there were just 4 variants of the de Havilland Comet made. The 4th one, of course, this one being the last one. There was a proposed 5th version, and of course they took the de Havilland Comet 4 and converted that into the Nimrod, which was used in the Royal Air Force for quite a long time. The Nimrod served as anti-submarine warfare aircraft, and of course they were retired and then eventually replaced with the P-8 Poseidons. The Comet is very important in commercial aviation because this was the first purpose-built jet-powered airliner. During World War II, the UK aerospace industry was absolutely booming. You have many companies like de Havilland, Avro, Hawker, BAC. I could go on forever and name a bunch of these different companies. But after World War II ended, the need for all of these kind of companies creating military aircraft kind of disappeared. And so a lot of these companies ended up not going anywhere, and eventually by the 21st century, not many of these would survive. A few of them kept on producing military aircraft. Of course, Avro went on to build the Vulcan and other aircraft like that served during the Cold War. But a lot of these companies started to look towards the commercial aerospace industry rather than the military one. And that's something that de Havilland did. De Havilland decided to build the Comet. Now the Comet 1 was the first one produced, and that was a slightly shorter version than the one you see here. And the Comet was overall a success at first. You had airlines like BOAC, Dan Air and BEA all ordering the Comets. And as well, even airlines in the US like Pan Am ordered the longer variants like the Comet 3s and 4s. But then sadly, something happened to the Comet. Now because it flew at such high altitudes, the cabin needed to be pressurized, and the Comets, unfortunately, at the time had square windows. And de Havilland learned the hard way that having square windows at such a high altitude with a pressurized cabin caused weak points. The corners of the square windows started going through so much stress that they actually started cracking, and it involved in several Comets crashing. This meant that from 1954 to 1958, all the Comets in the world had to be grounded. They of course then found the fault with the square windows, and they changed them to have round windows, and that's why even today all passenger aircraft have round windows, or at least if they're not round, they have those kind of curved edges to them. That way the stress of the force on the windows isn't confined to the corners of the windows, and it's spread equally throughout the window. In 1958, when de Havilland released this one, which is the de Havilland Comet 4 with the round windows, unfortunately by 1958 it was already too late. Both the 707 and the DC-8 were now released by the Americans, and those two aircraft went on to overtake the Comet. Even with the new fixed variant of the Comet, which is the Comet 4 that you see here, not many of these were sold. In fact, under 100 were ever built. And so by 1980, the Comet fell into retirement. Among the few operators of the Comet 4 were of course the Royal Air Force. The Royal Air Force used these as transport aircraft, and it is really cool. I love the shape of the Comet. It's such a unique design. Considering this was built just after World War II, I mean, the Comet 1 first flew in 1949, and this still looks futuristic even today. The way the engines are just kind of integrated into the wings there, it just looks so modern. I mean, that looks better than a lot of the aircraft we have today. There were issues with this, of course, and it is more practical to have the engines hang under the wings like we have on most aircraft today, because of course, then when the engine goes wrong, it's a lot easier to replace that engine when it's just hanging off the wing compared to when it's literally built into the wing structure there. So while this design does look really cool and futuristic, there are a lot of things that just aren't practical about this aircraft. But taking a closer look at the Comet now, as you can see, we have the round nose of the Comet here. We have the cockpit windows there. We have that same blue zigzag stripe going through the middle of the windows there. The livery is essentially the same as the Bristol Britannia. Then moving to the middle of the aircraft here, as you can see, we have those wings with the titles there, which is the Royal Air Force Transport Command. We have those engines built into the wings there. We have the Royal Air Force insignia on the wings, just like the Bristol Britannia that you can see. And then finally moving to the rear of the Comet, as you can see, we have the rear door there, we have the Royal Air Force insignia, and we have that tail. So yeah, with that concludes this unboxing. Definitely a very unique unboxing to say the least. We have 2 new types of aircraft into the collection there, and of course 3 new aircraft into my military collection in total. I'm just so over the moon to have the de Havilland Comet finally in my collection. I do want to see if I can get a de Havilland Comet 1 or 2, the shorter versions of the Comets, because those do look cool as well. Maybe one with the square windows. And as well, of course, as I said, I do want to get the Japanese Boeing 777-300 at some point, but I'm not in any rush to, so for now I'm pretty happy with my 747-400. But apart from that, that concludes this unboxing. So with that, I want to thank you very much for watching today's video, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.